Up late. All right. So I'm recording. So welcome, everyone. I just got a sneak peek at some kids, at some where people are living, what jobs people are doing. And this is all about your work and about controlling your work and how to externalize, organize, visualize, and optimize your work so you can work fewer hours and be more reliable without setting up a overly complicated system that you won't end up using in the first place. So for those who do not know who I am yet, my name is Zachary Sexton. I'm a podcaster, teacher, meditator, skier, and non-recovering business, caffeine, and productivity junkie. So the short answer is I help busy entrepreneurs work less and accomplish more. And in the next few minutes, I want to teach you just how to do that. I'm going to be doing this by teaching you how to visualize your work using Trello. Because when you can visualize your work, it creates awareness. You can see it. And with this awareness comes choice. Because as you become more aware of your work, you'll gain choice over what seems to be just happening. Because right now, you likely have a lot on your brain. It could be your worky work or your family work or just things that you want to get done. Your accountant wants you to file your taxes. Your friends want you to come to happy hour. Your garden wants you to water it. Your mom wants you to call her back. You need to hire that assistant. You need to book those flights. You need to finish that online course. You want to start journaling. You got to look into volleyball. You got to roll over that Roth IRA, then family dinner night. And when it's all up there in your head, it can be a little overwhelming. It's very easy to become overwhelmed, feel a little bit like this. Right now, all of those ideas, those tasks, those to-dos, they're just concepts in your mind. They're hard to prioritize and they're hard to analyze. You need a way to actually see the task that you're expected to perform so you can do the right work at the right time, so you can get some clarity to the chaos. So you can go from looking like this, overwhelmed and a little out of control, to smooth, confident, in control. So Trello creates this because it allows you to visualize your work. And visualizing your work creates awareness, and that awareness creates choice. So where did Trello come from? Well, you got to go back actually to the 1950s, before personal computers, before the internet, and back to the manufacturing age where Kanban came out of. So Kanban is a concept of lean scheduling that was developed by the Toyota Corporation in the 1950s. Kanban means signal card in Japanese, and you used visual cues that, I apologize, I got to take Morty's bone. He's driving me nuts with this chewing. Hopefully he's not too mad at me. Kanban uses visual cues that told factory workers what to produce, how much to produce, and when to produce it. The system had a highly visual nature that allowed workers to pull in the right work at the right time and allowed managers to see bottlenecks, waste, and other inefficiencies in the system. This awareness of the work and the workflow gave Toyota the choice to fix its inefficiencies. So they did. The constant improvements compounded, reducing cost, increasing quality, putting Toyota on the path to compete with U.S. manufacturers in a very short amount of time. Kanban spread. Its impact on the manufacturing world in the productivity has been massive. It's said to be on par with interchangeable parts in the assembly line. Starting in 2007, software companies started to adopt Kanban-like systems. Teams visualize their work with Post-it notes or digital cards based in project management systems like Trello. The visual communication allowed teams of programmers to write and ship code at significantly faster rates. Instead of car parts, ideas and feature requests are fed efficiently through the various stages of the programming assembly line. Using this approach, small teams have been able to quickly create useful applications used by millions of people, creating billions of dollars worth of value. For example, Instagram, a 13-person startup, sold to Facebook after only 18 months of development for $1 billion, $300 million in cash, $700 billion in Facebook options. The key feature to Kanban's success: Kanban allows you to see your work, which turns out to be hugely important because human beings are extremely visual creatures. The brain processes visual information 60,000 times faster than text. I was walking on the green belt the other day, this trail with Morty, and there was a stick that sort of looked like a snake. I was in the air before I realized what I was even looking at. This information is just goes instantly to your brain. 90% of your brain's brain, the information that comes to your brain is visual. 80% of the brain's processing power is dedicated to visual processing, and 6 out of 10 people, most people, are visual learners. The only animal in the world, on our planet, that has a better sense of sight than us are birds of prey. So we use our sight all day, every day, to commute safely to work, to read body language, to move around and manipulate objects in our environment. Vision is central to human cognition. It's how we physically and mentally navigate the world. When we have a task to do, a project to start, an action to take, we visualize what needs to be done first. We imagine what it could look like. We create a picture in our mind, and then we do the work. Here's the problem. When we visualize our work, in our heads, the task is low resolution. The details are fuzzy. We overlook steps, so it takes us longer than expected. We then have to move on to some other task before we finish, causing a pileup of incomplete projects that take even longer to complete because we have to waste time and cognitive energy reloading that mental image. Do this enough times in a day and you'll be exhausted by all the thinking, overwhelmed by your growing to-do list. However, there is an easier way. Make your work visible. Visualizing your work creates awareness. This awareness creates choice. So how do you get there? Well, this is what the presentation is all about. There's 4 steps to gaining control. So the first step that I want to go through, and this is where we'll actually see Trello in action, is externalizing. So when I mean externalize, I mean getting the work out of your head, getting those pictures, those concepts, those ideas that were stuck in your brain out, to get them onto paper so it builds more clarity. And here is how you do it. So a very simple example, and I just created one. I had a little think about what are some things that I want to do next week. Well, I need to take my puppy to the vet. I've got to call my parents and ask them about vacation. My cleaner didn't show up today, so I've got to hire a new one by calling TaskRabbit. I want to teach Morty to roll over. I've got to meet with Debbie about some graphics that she's designing. That's my virtual assistant. And I want to follow up with a potential client. So I just took 5 minutes and I thought, well, these are the things that I want to do next week. So the text is good. And if you just stop there, that's better than 90% of the population who just keep everything in your heads. But with Kanban and with Trello, you can make this work much more visible. So all I did right here is I selected the text and I did Command-C to copy it over, and then I'm opening up Trello. So for those who aren't familiar with Trello, Trello is an application that is completely free. It's web-based. It's also on your phone. And just recently, they came up with a computer for both Windows and Mac, a little computer app that you can use. I still mainly use the web-based app because there's so much more that you can do with it. But it's got 3 parts. You got your board, which we're seeing a board right here. You've got list, and you can create as many lists as you want just by saying mini list and typing it in. And you've got cards, and so you can add cards by clicking the add card, and you can add card here. Something not a lot of people know is if you want to take your written to-do list and add it to Trello, you can add the card and paste it. So I've got my to-dos right here. I'm going to add them all, and I could just create 1 card, but I'm going to create 6 cards. So that is how I have I've started to visualize my work or externalize my work and put it into a place that is easy to see. So that's the first step. If you want to gain more awareness, gain more clarity, have more control over your work, the next step is really to start to organize the work. And I told a note to myself, stop, actually organize the work. So here's how that looks. So we got the Trello board, and let's say my parents came back, so I'm gonna give them a call right now, so I can put that into the doing pile, and then this could be done. So just a really simple way to organize your work. For those on the call that have maybe 50 boards, you know how many different ways you can organize this work. And I'll show a couple more examples right here. So other options to organizing your work is you can actually do it with Post-it notes. Here's one example. Here's another example that I have of creating a Kanban type system with Post-it notes. There's a lot of benefit to the physicality of sticky notes and actually pulling them from to do to doing to done. It's very satisfying. It's also very satisfying moving these cards around too. But there's just a good kinesthetic feel that you can get to cards. And here's another example of this is actually my fiance's Trello board. I helped her out create a board. You can see that she's got a lot of little to-dos on there, and then she also plans out her next week and things that she's waiting for. But what you'll realize, especially as you get more into organizing your work and visualizing your work with Trello, is that everyone is different. Sort of like in Harry Potter, the Patronus, where I don't know how big of nerds you guys are, but Harry's Patronus was a stag, and I think Hermione's was an otter, I want to say. Something like that. But that's this special spell that they use with their special wand, and your personality, the type of work you do, the way you like to see things will all make your work organization, your Kanban workflow, your Trello organization a little bit different. Here's some examples of what I've seen. So you've got to do, doing, done, or options, doing, done is another way of saying it. So you can call it to do or on deck or future options, this quarter, this week, good ideas, someday maybe, upcoming projects, current projects waiting for. So this is that externalized work that you've organized into different lists. Then you've got your doing. So you could call that today, doing, in progress, to review, on hold. Maybe you're waiting for somebody to get back to you on something. And then you've got your done pile. I can't think of any other way to split the done pile besides, yay, you're done with it. So that is externalize and organize. The next step to getting more control over your work is to really visualize it. One quote that I really like is never to try to solve all of your problems at once. Make them line up for you one by one. So when you try to organize your work into a Kanban-like system, this might be something that happens. You've got your to-do, doing, done, options, doing, done. So take a look at that black Post-it note right there, a black Trello card. So you're pulling the work into doing, and then you're going to done. Pulling the work into doing, going to done. You've got your work options. Everything seems to be getting done except for that top card. And a reason work doesn't get done that I've seen is because it's not clearly visualized yet. And by visualize, I don't mean like you've drawn a picture of it, although maybe that can help. But by visualize, I mean having a very clear picture of what done looks like and what the steps are to get to done. So here's a process for helping you visualize your work. The first thing is to just think about what you want. So what is the project in detail? What constitutes a successful outcome? What's the due date? What are some resources you need? Why are you doing this in the first place? How does it benefit you and the world? So these are some questions you can ask yourself if you find yourself stuck on a project, especially a big project that doesn't seem to be moving. So that's the first step. Second is to divide out the project into 3 to 6 steps. And then lastly, make sure that first step is actionable, starts with a verb, and takes no more than 5 minutes to do. So this is a client of mine who visualized his work, and he wrote a card that said, okay, this is what I need to do. But then he realized his information was scattered all over the place in all these different emails and different parts of his system. So he organized it in a list that was actionable, and it was very easy to start up. Yeah, he had another project manager, it looks like Basecamp there. And he found that a project that he thought was going to take 3 or 4 hours ended up taking about an hour because he clearly laid out all of the next actions. And he didn't have as much resistance to getting the project done, so he ended up getting it done early. And here's kind of what's at play here. When you're procrastinating on something, the pain of starting is higher than the pleasure of finishing. Procrastinating, or maybe just not moving forward on a project, would be a better way of saying that. So the pain of starting is heavier than the pleasure of finishing. What I mean is, let's say you want to do a big project, like write a book. Well, your brain knows that's going to be difficult, and it has an undefined period of how long that difficult period is going to be. So it has a lot of resistance to doing that project. It knows it's going to be cognitively demanding, and our brains are like, well, let's save that glucose for maybe if there's a saber-toothed tiger chasing us. I don't want to waste that right away. So what you do when you're breaking down the work into thinking about what you want, dividing it into 3 to 6 steps, and making sure that first step is actionable, is you're reducing the pain of starting. And if you get very clear on why you're doing the project, you increase the weight of the pleasure of finishing. You're like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this in the first place. This is why it's so important to me. And as soon as that seesaw tips in the other direction, you'll get working on stuff. So visualization is something I sometimes have to convince people to do. Like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. Well, then why isn't it getting done? And a lot of times, just being very clear with yourself what it is and then what needs to happen next will make that project, make that work get done so much more effectively. And then it's not going to be on your mind too, because you've captured it. And that's one of the biggest troubles people have with lack of focus, is there's too much going on in their mind, and they keep on thinking about work while trying to do other work. And having too many projects at a time is another thing that plays into that. All right. So step 4, we've talked about externalizing. It's getting the work out of your head and organizing the work. So you've got your to-do doing done, your options doing done, then visualizing, getting very clear on what the work is. And that will actually have so much more control than the 99.9% of the population. But I want to improve on that. So I'd like to add a step, which is optimize. So optimizing is just finding little tweaks, little improvements week after week that you can make. And those little improvements compound over time. So think if you found something that's going to save you 5 minutes every day, might not seem like a big deal. You automate, have some little automation that saves you 5 minutes a day. But over time, that really does add up. And what Kanban allows and what Trello allows that most to-do lists do not is the ability to learn from your work, so you can do better next time, so you can do more of what you enjoy, and so you can do more of what's actually giving you results. I'm going through a book right now by billionaire Ray Dalio called Principles. And he is a investment banker who, while I don't like to listen to most investment bankers, he's one of the few that has year over year over year just proven to outsmart the market. And the way he does it is because anytime he makes a mistake, he sees that as an opportunity to learn what went wrong and then fix it for next time. So his mental model is pain plus reflection equals growth. So each time he makes a mistake, it's a new puzzle to be solved. It's an opportunity. Everything has happened before, in his opinion. So he just looks in the history books. Okay, last time there was a recession like this, or last time housing prices were like this, or last time we had this situation in an organization. What happened, and how can we improve upon it? So some models that you can do is from your Trello boards. You're doing the work, and then maybe an example for visualizing the work. Take puppy to vet. I would need to find a dress, and I could Google that really quick, or get the phone number so I can give them a call to set the appointment. So that'd be visualizing work. But then once all that's done, you've got your done pile, and you can review and say, okay, well, that vet made me wait for an hour. I'm going to find a new one. Or that trainer, that online trainer that I was using, it worked really well. So I'm gonna maybe buy his course. So that's the idea of reviewing your work to optimize it. And how I like to do that is more really visualization here, is to take those Kanban cards, those Post-it notes, or those Trello cards, and move it into different matrices. So if you took all the work that you did for a week and put it into 3 different buckets, you loved it, you hated it, or you're neutral on it, you can find out, okay, man, what are these things that I'm really disliking right now? What's the work that I just hate doing? I'm not good at it. It doesn't give me a lot of return for the amount of effort that I'm doing. How can I delete this? How can I delegate this? How can I defer this? Things that I love, man, I just love working with this client. Well, what type of client is he? How can I find more clients like that? So that's loved it, hated it, neutral. Another one is on time or stressed out. So maybe work's getting to you a little bit late, or you're getting work out a little bit late. So you can look at that and say, okay, why did this particular project get out the door late, or why was I given this late? What are some pieces of the system that I can improve, that I can optimize to make sure that doesn't happen again? If you are a business owner or entrepreneur, freelancer or coach or self-employed in any way, you need to make sure that you're using your time in the highest value way possible. You can always get more money, but you can't get more time. So buying other people to do things for you, those $10 hour work, the fixing of the toner, the doing of the graphics, here, let's look at some $10 booking plane tickets, checking email, doing expense reports. Those are the types of things that you're going to want to hire out or automate or figure out some sort of solution, so you're working more on the $1,000 and $10,000 hour work, which is more aligned with strategy or recruiting or building out a sales funnel. That's another way of reflect. So you've got the pain of doing low value tasks, and then you're going to reflect on that to grow, to make sure that you're using your time in the best way possible. I want to quickly touch on teams. So teams are made up of individuals, and individuals are also unclear on their work, can't see their workflow, can't see team members' workflows. Like Toyota, your business has a value stream. Raw materials come in, finished products come out. They look different for every company and every team, and your job is to make that invisible workflow that is already happening visible. Because when you visualize your work, that creates awareness, and that awareness creates choice, creates control. So once that happens, you and your business can pull in the right work at the right time. You'll see the bottlenecks, the waste, and other inefficiencies in the system. This awareness of the work and the workflow will give you the choice to fix the inefficiencies. So you will. The constant improvements will compound over time, reducing cost, increasing quality. So what can this look like for you? Best tool that I've found for all kinds of workflows and projects is Trello. It's got 3 parts. You got the boards, the list, the cards, and the flexibility that Trello allows is what is so wonderful about it. And it's also the thing that makes it a little bit difficult to get started. So here's a recent example of a CPA I worked with, an accountant that I work with, and she had about 60 plus tax returns that needed to get done, and they're all in various stages of the process. Some of them she had the information from the client, others she reviewed it but hadn't documented it all. Others she'd sent to the clients and just was waiting on approval. Others she'd finished but hadn't gotten paid for yet. So the only way she knew where her work was if she looked in her email, looked in a bunch of spreadsheets, and then looked at some actually Post-it notes she had lying around to know where everyone was at. So what I did is just had a conversation with her. I was like, okay, if you had nothing else to do in the world except for work on one person's return, what would you do? Well, I would make sure I got the data that I needed that was received. Okay, so you need to receive the data. Then what would you do? Well, then I would have my assistant enter that data into our program. Okay, then what? Well, inevitably there's some missing information, and then with that missing information, we have to request it. Okay, well then what? Well, then I review the return, and then I send that to the client, and so on and so forth. I think there was about 10 steps. So once we got all the steps, which we represented in lists, we then added cards to this board, and each of those 60 outstanding clients that she had represented a card, and then we put them on the various stages of the workflow. So she was able to see her entire work and delegate so much more effectively, because she could see where things that she needed to be working on lied, and then where things that her team needed to be working on. And so she went from a state of being very overwhelmed and very stressed to actually the next week took a vacation and was popping on Trello and making sure the work that she wasn't in charge of was still getting done, and she could take a little bit of a spring break down in South Padre Islands before the hurricane came. So this is a team example, and Edward Deming's a famous efficiency guru back in the 1950s too, said a bad system will beat a good person every time. And I've set up hundreds of Trello boards. I've helped teams and individuals visualize their work. And if you're ready to create more choice in your life, I would love to help. I do one-on-one coaching, and I can set up your first Kanban board for you. I can visualize your project workflows. I can document your client fulfillment system. I can plug the leaks in your sales pipelines. I can organize your team. Setting this up, optimizing it, and maintaining your work and your workflow typically takes between 6 and 12 hours. And my rate right now is $200 an hour. And my personalized coaching costs less than typical business seminars and don't require travel. But smaller teams and individuals found the $1,200 to $2,400 investment a little bit hard to make. So recently I tried an experiment. This experiment was an online boot camp designed to enhance your productivity. I called it Clean Slate. So the reason for calling it Clean Slate is just starting fresh, getting a fresh reboot for you to externalize, organize, visualize, optimize, and then maintain that system over the long haul. And it is a 4-week course. A couple of the people that just got done with it said that I'm not feeling overwhelmed. Zach helped me delegate, limit my work in progress, and review what is going on in my mind by writing it and making it visual, powerful stuff. Sometimes I realize that tasks or projects are not actually valuable. So that was Jorge. He's got a 16-person manufacturing team in Brazil. So he was one of the first Clean Slate members. Mike Hart, who runs his app in the UK, says the training is awesome. I've done your guided mind sweep and was surprised by the amount of resulting open loops and ideas that he had. I believe he had 160. So I've got a guided mind sweep that I have people in the group coaching go through, and it's about 20 minutes long, and I just prompt you, okay, projects that you've started but haven't finished, projects that you're currently working on, or your house, your garage, or let's look at your calendar right now. Is there anything in there? Let's look forward 2 weeks. Let's look back 2 weeks. So it's a guided audio, and I think he had 160 or 180. I always forget which one of the two. Jamie said, I've accomplished so many tasks, and I feel amazing, more focused and productive in what I want to create. So both coming in, deciding what the work is, and then seeing what you've accomplished, as well as optimizing the work that you've accomplished, are big results that you can get with the Clean Slate coaching. Some of you, I don't know if all of you, but some of you might have taken the productivity quiz before coming on to this training right here. And so if you were 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or 13, which are the emails that I got back from folks, you are in good company. I think the average was 11 or 12 for people coming into the Clean Slate program. So they kept a significant number of to-dos in their head, and they often got distracted by their work, or they would forget to do something that they said they would do, which is a problem that I used to have all the time, which is actually why I got into productivity in the first place, because I couldn't trust myself to finish the work that I said I would, or follow through with what I said I would follow through with, and it just made me feel horrible that I just wasn't a dependable person. So I figured out some systems, I figured out some tools that worked for me, and I've been not shutting up about it ever since. That was about 5 years ago. So on average, it was 11 or 12 coming in, and then it was 3, 4, 5 coming out. So it was over a doubling of the amount of control over the time and attention people had. And this was just the average. So here's what that group coaching looks like. And you can follow along right here if you go to zacharysexton.com/clean slate. And here it is. So it's 4 weeks long. And it starts in about 24, 25 days. The first day is going to be on November 13th. So on Mondays of November, you will have group coaching sessions. And this time I'm actually doing things a little bit differently, where I will have video recordings beforehand that you watch, and you'll come and have more of an interactive lecture where you're doing the work. I've also got 9 supplemental training videos, one-on-one weekly coaching. So this is kind of where the rubber hits the road. You will learn in detail all the steps to visualizing, organizing, reviewing, and doing the things you need to get done, and having homework to implement them. But then every Friday or Saturday morning, we will work one-on-one to make sure that your system is up and running. If there's other things you need to work on, maybe some digital organization with your Evernote or your Dropbox or your email, those are all things that tie together in having complete control over your work, having a personal dashboard of all of your commitments. And then we also have a forum. So there's a Facebook group, and I actually have a shortcut, so you don't have, if you're somebody who gets very distracted by Facebook like I do, if you go to zacharysexton.com/Facebook, and I may change the URL. It goes right to the Clean Slate group, where people put their homework and help each other out and add videos. I'm actually this round, I'm keeping the same Facebook group because there's so much good information in there, and there'll be 15 other people who did this group coaching before that may want to chime in or ping you about something that they've learned since doing the group coaching. So here are the dates: November 13th, 20th, 27th, and December 4th. Here's the outline that you can see, and you can dive in deeper there if you're wanting to look at that. But we're going to introduce the course and then go into externalization. And next we'll organize, visualize, optimize, and maintain. So these are all the together lessons that we'll have. Everything will be recorded, and you can watch the videos anytime. I didn't put this on here, but I will just say there will be bonuses on Wednesday. Typically, I have somebody, another productivity friend of mine, come in and give a little bonus lesson. Likely bonus lessons will be on Evernote, Google Suite, and theming your days. So those are the ones that I have tentatively lined up right now with some folks like Stacey Harmon and Mike Vardy and other productivity people. So if you've gone to the site, you can look down and you could see that rather than paying $1,000+ for one-on-one coaching, I've put the price at $497. So you still actually get one-on-one coaching with me, and then you get the group coaching. You get the accountability of other people in the group. You get the productivity quiz coming in and coming out, so we know where you need to make your improvements leaving the system and how to maintain that. And then for the rest of your life, you'll have access to all of the recordings and the videos in the forum, and likely get invites to some of the bonus calls that we do. So that is what I got going on. And if this is something that you just feel like, boy, I could really use a clean slate, a fresh start in my productivity system, I'm super proud of how it turned out, and I've already thought of a number of improvements that I can make for the next go around that I'm really excited to roll out. If you join now, I have a couple things for you. First, a $150 discount. The next thing that I'll have for you is a advanced Trello training video. It's about 70 minutes long, and you can get access to that instantly. Calendaring video, a mindfulness and productivity training, an agile team training. This is really cool. We had somebody who was on a 13-person team come in and share her sales, her content marketing, and then her team, Agile and Scrum boards. If you're not familiar with that, Agile is just a way of visualizing your work, but then also limiting the amount of work that you have to a certain amount of time, maybe a week or 2 weeks. Sprints is what they call it. So it's pretty cool methodology if you're on a small team, and especially if you're on a remote team. And if you join now, you'll get 8 Kanban lesson course. So some of you might have gone through it in an email course, but I'll put it into a format where you can read and watch all the videos all in one place. 4 recorded group coaching sessions. So this is the version 2 of Clean Slate. So you'll get the first version if you want to start diving in and learning the concepts now, get ahead of the game, and you'll get instant access to the Facebook group. So if you want to join and you want to get that early bird pricing discount, so $150 off the normal pricing, if you join before the 22nd by going to zacharysexton.com/early-bird. If you forget the dash, that's okay. It'll still get you there as well. It'll just take you to this PayPal page, and you can either use your PayPal account or pay with your debit or credit card, whatever works easiest for you. But that is That is the training that is going to come on this November, starting the 13th. So right now, I got in 5 minutes under time. I said I'd do it in 40 minutes. I was a little, with 170 slides, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do that. But I'm happy to answer any questions you may have specifically regarding Trello, regarding Kanban, or regarding the course itself. So I'm going to stop sharing right here, and or Morty. If you want to talk about Morty, I like to talk about Morty. So I'm very open to doing that right now. I'll unmute. Yeah, sure. I'll unmute all. Hopefully nobody's yelling at something. And if you guys don't have any questions, we can just end early. Have a productive afternoon.
I have a question.
Cool. Who is this? I'm not.
Sorry, this is David Aronson.
Oh, hey, David.
Hey, long time no talk.
I know.
Actually. I actually had a question about how you manage a large swath of boards in Trello, specifically with reviewing this. The last time I attempted Trello, even though I love the idea of Kanban, I found that it was nearly impossible to sit down and review all those different boards like I can simply review my OmniFocus setup.
Oh, that's a really good question. All right, so let me share my screen with you. And that's, as honestly, it's like, I probably should emphasize that a little bit more. That is the main point of this course, is to have a personal dashboard, one place. Some people decided they wanted to separate their work and their personal, and that's fine. I have one place, and I'd say 3/4 of the people who went through the first time decided that one place made the most sense for them. So it hasn't been cleaned, but I think it's probably decent enough. So I'll share my board with you. So here's my board, and like I said, everyone has their own Patronus. I've been using this for about 5 years. This is kind of how I have things. So when I externalize work, when I get work out of my head, it all goes into my notes and ideas right here. So if you're familiar with getting things done, it's like your inbox or your in process. So I'll always be adding cards right here for different ideas. So this is a video I wanted to watch, and a little. It's not even processed. I haven't even made it actionable yet. This is like a book that I'm going to read. I'll likely put that on my Evernote. So this is when it comes in. Then I keep all my current and upcoming projects here. I use a app called Trello to be able to hide a certain list. So if I don't want to see some things, and I usually hide a lot more lists than I'm hiding right now. So I'll hide the list that I normally hide as I walk you through this. Then I've got areas. So this is how I organize really everything, is projects in areas, which are maybe an ongoing project that I have. So for example, Able Business Radio is a podcast that I host every week. It's ongoing. It's never going to stop. So I have that as an area, and I link to it, link to that project there. If it's another project that requires me to visualize things out in another board, I do that. So for example, grow podcast. I'm trying to get on more podcast. So here's another podcast board that I do to look at that. So the linking of the boards together is how I do things. How you link the boards together is super simple. So you can either take that URL up here and copy that, or if you go to show more and more, you can copy that URL right there, and you can link boards to one another. I find this easier. I do it most times, but if you change the name of the board, that URL might not work in the future. So that's something to kind of consider.
That's great.
Yeah. So then I'll hide the current projects and a lot of the areas, and then I just kind of focus on ready for this week, my to-dos, and then my daily focus. So if my daily focus, if I do put too many things in there, it turns red. That's another Chrome extension that I use to make sure that I'm limiting my work in progress. And then I have a waiting on list that I usually look at about twice a week to make sure things are getting back to me at a reasonable time. And then I've got my done list. And so done right here, these are all the things that I've accomplished this week. And I've even got a little automation where at a certain time, this done pile completely disappears and goes to another board where I review that work. So that optimization phase right there, it comes into play. I also do that. So with Debbie, that's my virtual assistant. We do the same thing. So we've got to do, doing, to review, on hold, and done. And then every week, this done pile gets moved to another board that's called DZ Review. And I actually have Debbie do this. She takes that work that goes to this to review list and goes, loved it, hated it, neutral. So I can make sure I'm giving her work that she enjoys. Another way to start to organize your work is to do it on the board. So Trello, you can have different teams. So these are my starred boards. My personal boards probably could use a little bit more organization. This was all the 15 people that were on the September's Clean Slate course. These are my shared boards that I have with my virtual team. Here's some past clients. I actually organize a lot of work with clients here. And here's some templates that I use. So if you create a team, which you can do, if you look in the upper right-hand corner right here, there's different teams. So you can change team, view the team page. The only other way to organize your boards is to get upgrade to business class, and that's, I believe, $10 a month per person. But the main thing I use is the linking of the boards and having one sort of like Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Boards. One board to rule them all. So I could just instantly see all the things that I have to do, and that's how I make it work. Because otherwise, you're right. If you've got 7 or 8 projects going on, and you're just always bouncing from board to board. Another thing that I do is I try to have I try to name boards in a way that I'll remember them. So, for example, Dr. Rubin is one of my clients right now, and I'm helping him actually launch a podcast. So here's another way of organizing the work. We just said, okay, this needs to get done on week 40. This needs to get done on week 41, 42, 43, 44. And so these are the things we're currently doing. I'm working on this. He's working on this. Debbie's actually doing some work, some image work for him, and he's got a web designer building his website. And then here's the stuff that we've done. Another app that for the Chrome is actually just the Trello app, which allows you to quickly, if you hit the T button and the space bar, you can search for your different boards. So that's a way of finding boards very quickly. And then lastly, my main project board is always up here in my bookmark bars. And then my areas, so sales, Debbie, Able Business Radio, podcast outreach, 12-week year, those boards that I go to pretty consistently, I put in my bookmark bar in a folder. So that's another way of quickly accessing that information. And you got me going, David. Apparently I had an answer for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did have one second question.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to hoard all the questions, but I'm really curious.
It's a small group, so hoard away.
Awesome. My other question is how do you handle data inputs? Again, as a GTD guy, I'm very big about it. I got to get everything out of my head at all times, and I don't want to leave everything in my head. And so having a really fast way of putting just every idea I have in a place that I can easily review is super important to me. It's a large part of my workflow. So do you find that you do all that into Trello, or do you put everything else somewhere else, and then do you sift that into Trello?
So there's a few different ways to skin that mammer jammer. One of them, I do have a handful of clients that have either OmniFocus or Todoist, and they use that for their capture, and then they plan out their weeks and their projects in Trello. So it's sort of a hybrid system because they're used to that tool and they really like it, but they're not finishing work. They just keep on seeing work coming up. So they're using Trello as more of a visual dashboard, and then also as a way to communicate their work with their teams. Because something I didn't mention, but something you'll be aware of is you can share these boards and these cards with your team. So they use it a little bit more for project management in that way. So there's a hybrid system. There's a system that I use where I just keep Trello on my phone, and I think it has pretty good capture. And then as of a month ago, the Trello now has a Mac and Windows app that allows quick capture. So that same quick capture that you have in OmniFocus, you can do in Trello. I can't remember what the keyboard shortcut is at the moment, but that's something I'm going to be playing around with a little bit more. The other option for you to do is I actually use Siri, and if you have an Android phone or Google Assist, if I'm in a situation, especially if I'm driving, which I don't do all that often, but if I happen to be driving and I want to remember something, I'm like you, it needs to get out of my head instantly, or I'm not a happy camper. So I'll just say, hey Siri, remind me to do such and such at such and such time. So if it's a little 2-minute thing, I'll just do it. Like often it's send a text, follow up with a phone call, something small, or add something to my grocery list. If it's something bigger, I usually plan the reminder to be at a place where I'll know I'll be at my computer, or I won't be occupied, so I can capture that to do. So I use the reminder app to remind me, oh yeah, put that in there. So it's already captured it. A couple people on the last Clean Slate program had a difficult time capturing as well, and they went analog. So they used, I believe Jorge was the one who used sticky notes to capture ideas, and somebody else used two other people used a physical journal. And they used a journal, and then if something was actionable, they put a little triangle next to it. If they needed to go in the calendar, they put a little circle next to it. If it was something maybe they wanted for reference or just didn't really even need it all, they put a little dash next to it. And if they've captured it, they cross it out. So they know that it's gotten into their system or not. So that's kind of another way of making sure that you have a clean, effortless capture system, and that's what week one we really talk about. So in the coaching, I'll have you do that mind sweep ahead of time, and in that whole first week, we're not going to organize your boards, we're not going to create your boards, we're going to focus completely on your capture habit. And what people found is there are so many different places where they need to capture that they didn't realize. So like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, email. There's like conversations. They're just shower thoughts. Like as somebody who's practiced getting things done, GTD is, sorry, using an acronym people might not know. The capture is essential. Part of it, and knowing where that capture happens is the first stage of the course, and then you come up with a routine, exactly how you're going to capture. So I was just talking about routines, but first you got to know what those triggers are. So if I'm in my car, I use Siri. If I'm at my computer, I'll enter it right on the desktop app. If I'm in email, I'll forward the to-do to Trello from my email application. So it's knowing the trigger, then knowing the routine, and then having some sense of completion, of reward for it. So to go back to, I think you took the rituals course. It's trigger, routine, reward, and knowing all your tools. So we create that capture habit first, and that's if you go to the that questionnaire that I had people, the productivity quiz. It's, do you keep a significant number of to-dos in your head? If you can fix that, you're halfway there. Half the battle's done. Then it just comes to organizing, and the next biggest issue people have is limiting their work in progress, just not having so many projects going on at a certain time. So great question though.
I have.
Yes, I can imagine that would be an issue that we would work on together. Cool. All right. Is David going to be my only questionnaire? It looks like other David walked off, and Katie's hanging out. Got Wendy too. She's muted. All right. Well, if that is all, I will. David, last call for questions. Oh, maybe he muted me.
I don't think we can hear him.
He'll watch the recording later and be embarrassed. All right. Well, then I'll leave you guys to it. So if you want to get that $150 off plus all the bonuses, just go to zacharysexton.com/early bird. Here, I can share that link with you. And as soon as I see that see that come in, I'll be able to, what I do is I'll create a Trello board for you with all of those resources and information there that you can find it all and start taking the whole course if you want to, or just find an area that you really need to work on, sort of like the David asked about the capture. So if you have trouble capturing your work and putting it into one place, that would be something you can look into. Or if you don't even know how to use the tool, you could look into the Trello training that we got going there. So that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope this was helpful, and look forward to connecting with some of you guys soon. Bye,
See
y'all.
ya.
Take care.